Welcome to VC's Off the Record. This is Real Talk with Real Investors. Your host, Gayle Jennings-O'Byrne, CEO of Wocstar Capital and co-founder of the Wocstar Fund, has spent 30 years in finance. And I'm here too. I'm Victoria Byrd. I'm the Chief Content Officer and Creative Director of Wocstar Media. And I've spent 30 years in media. We champion female entrepreneurs, we champion diverse teams, and we're both passionate about stories that change old narratives. We're looking to inform you, inspire you, and help you get your bag and your dreams.
Hey, Wocstar family. Welcome to another episode of VC's Off the Record. I know I say this every time, but this is a fabulous episode, and I'm so glad you're here to join me in this conversation. I'm your host, Gayle Jennings-O'Byrne, the CEO of Wocstar Capital and the co-founder of Wocstar Fund. And with me is my fabulous co-host, Victoria Byrd, who is the Chief Content Officer for Wocstar Capital and the Creative Director for Wocstar Media. Hey, lady.
Hey, lady.
Hey, lady.
That's our thing, I guess. When I was thinking about today's show and our guest today,
Jackson Block.
He's so
cool. Is
that
not the best name?
Yeah, it's power name. It's like
it totally
it's a power
is.
name. Yeah.
How did his parents know that? Like, we're going to give this child this powerful name.
They infused him with that.
Kudos to his mom and dad.
And
beautiful name.
And what he does to really in the space of inclusivity and that's sort of what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Like
and
inclusive investing.
Yes, and we need the Jacksons of the world. We need LGBT plus VC in the world. Like, we need a voice, we need an organization, we need a community. And so I'm really excited we're going to be talking to him.
Yeah, and he's doing some amazing stuff. And he's also a part of, and I want you to explain to people what this is. There's a lot of letters that are about to come out now. NYCEDC BAA, which is New York City
Economic Development Corp.
Venture
Access Alliance.
Tell me what that is. Tell people what that is. I mean, I know what it is, but you know.
Yeah, no. Yeah. So Venture Access Alliance is a initiative that was stood up by New York City's Economic Development Corp. And this season, you're going to hear and get to know a lot of the venture funds here in New York City that are members of the Venture Access Alliance, because we want entrepreneurs to know about all the amazing VCs in New York City that are committed to diversity and inclusion and are investing in New Yorkers and companies around the globe. And the mission is to make sure that as amazing a ecosystem that New York City has around venture capital and entrepreneurship, that we as a community are also intentional about diversity and inclusion. And so it is a member-based initiative. 100 plus VCs have already joined, are committed to learning from their peers, helping figure out best practices, writing checks, right? You know, committing capital to New York-based entrepreneurs. And also we're thinking about the pipeline of talent. So be it internships, be it career changers, how do we diversify at the firms themselves and not just around the capital that gets allocated. So it's a pretty cool group. Wocstar Capital helps the convening of the initiative. And I'm just really excited that this season on the podcast, you're going to get to meet a bunch of my peers and colleagues that are also venture capitalists in New York City.
It's so intentional. And it
has to be.
It has to be.
It has to be.
But is it new? Is it new? The idea of, I'll tell you why I asked this. I was looking up, we had a guest on an episode or two ago that had a last name that was the same as a very, very male, white VC firm. And I was so confused because I thought, I don't think this gentleman works in here. And it really struck me when I scrolled down and saw all the people that worked at the firm, that it was just every single person on the team on the website was a white man. Now, when did that start to change, when they said we need to let people into the space that look different, that are different, and invest differently? When did that start to change?
I think it changed when underrepresented people decided that they needed a place at the table. You know, it's like all things in history, they're not necessarily given. You just sort of have to take. So to your question, is it new? It is. I mean, we still only have a few percentage points of capital going to underrepresented and diverse founders.
What's the numbers when you say small? Is it 4%? I know you've told me, and I can't remember. Is it 4 or 16
No.
or?
Oh my God, no. It's like, well, depending on which report, it's 2, it's 3.
Yeah.
For the LGBT plus community, it's 0.5.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
low.
It's ridiculously low.
So now
it's like shamefully low. Like as a sector, we should all feel a sense of shame.
So if we're saying it's under 5%, so 95% of it is going in one box.
98%.
So the pie, 98% of the pie is
of
going,
the billions
that
is invested in entrepreneurs is not going to some of the best and brightest entrepreneurs and companies out there. And here's the crazy thing about it. The studies, the research shows that if you invest in diverse, inclusive teams, founding teams, that your returns can be 30% greater. So if you're an investor who's looking to generate more capital, i.e. more returns, and yet here's so many research and studies that show this demographic, this diverse team profile will help you achieve your investment goals, you got to wonder, why aren't you doing it? What else is going on?
What else is going on
What's
there?
going on?
Wonder. Yeah, I think we know. But
what's that thinking emoji? I mean, listen, in our name is Wocstar, Women of Color Stars.
Yeah.
Now, we just happen to be female forward in that we want to make sure that women and underrepresented people are at the table. That's not at the exclusion of the bros.
Right. Of anybody.
It's just making sure that there is truly representation across the board. And we do that. I want to be clear about this because we're not an impact fund. We're not a social impact mission organization.
Right.
We are capitalists.
Right.
Red-blooded American capitalists.
Right.
I like money. I like winning.
Yeah.
I want generational wealth. I don't have kids, but I want generational wealth for my family, for the entrepreneurs, and for my investors. And our investment thesis believes that if we invest in women and diverse and underrepresented populations, that 30%, those studies that are out there, we'll be able to deliver that to our investors and to the entrepreneurs. So it's not a feel good. It's an economic strategy that says we're going to go where we think we're going to earn above average returns and go deliver that to our investors and the entrepreneurs.
Right. And it's why leave it on the table?
Why leave money on the table?
Yeah. Why leave money on the table?
That's powerful, right?
It is, Ally. Yeah.
That's powerful.
Let's we're gonna take a break. You're gonna talk to Jackson.
Jackson Block. LGBT plus VC.
This episode of VC's Off the Record is brought to you by Wocstar Ghetto Film School Entrepreneurial Academy.
Hey, Wockstars. My guest today is Jackson Block, who heads up LGBT plus VC and is a good friend, a great ally, and I'm so excited we're here having a conversation off the record with our listeners at VC Off the Record. Jackson, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Honor is this way. Now, you know, as being a Venture Access Alliance active member, that we want people to have more access to the VC community. And so I love what you're doing. I love that you're making that possible. Can you tell us 3 things about yourself first, and then we're going to get into the organization?
Sure. Happy to tell you a little bit about myself. My name's Jackson. I use he, him pronouns. I say I'm the bisexual CEO of LGBT VC, and that is actually an important part of our story. being your lived and authentic self. I'm originally from California, so I say I'm a Californian and a New Yorker because I had those two identities. So I say I'm bicoastal and bisexual.
Love
So
it.
those are two things. And then the third thing, I'm really glad that we joined the Venture Access Alliance. I think New York is a leader in venture equality and venture capital as a form of economic mobility and inclusion. And so I'm really excited.
Awesome. And thank you again for all that you do. And speaking of all that you do, can you tell us how LGBT plus VC came to be?
Yeah, so LGBT VC came about. It's right now over. It feels like 2 years ago. It was probably a little bit more like a year and a half, but it came across right at the time of SVB collapsing. It was a fundamental moment because you saw 650 VC firms jump on within seconds to support SVB's collapse.
Yeah.
When the Dobbs decision happened, 150 VC firms supported reproductive rights and reproductive justice. And it was also the moment of the Club Q massacre, where 5 individuals in Colorado, where LGBTQ individuals were hurt and massacred here in the United States. But those catalysts of 3 different events happening at the same time, as well as the onslaught of anti-LGBTQ legislation across the United States, kind of became the impetus for LGBT VC. I was working, and so it was my co-founder at an LGBTQ plus investment firm, and with the belief that one firm can't solve this systemic problem,
Yeah.
LGBT VC plus was formed. We do use the Q as well. We welcome everyone from all different backgrounds and identities. And it was going to start out, we're bringing people together, networks together. But it was a coalition of Black and Jewish relations. It was multicultural, and it was painting a new picture for venture capital because LGBTQIA plus is diversification.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tell us a bit about what you do on a day-to-day basis in terms of programming, community building. How do you show up in the VC community?
That's a great question. So our flywheel or investment thesis is this. We believe that all LGBTQIA plus people can become investors, and we do also have allies too, and I'll tell a fun ally story in just a second. But more LGBTQI plus investors increases investment in incredible venture backable businesses,
Yeah.
which then increase employment opportunities for queer and trans people who are under or unemployed for a variety of discriminatory reasons. And then when everyone's enriched, they donate back to LGBTQ plus nonprofits. And within our first year, we actually saw that 79%, many of our corporate partners, as well as community members, started giving to LGBTQ plus causes for the first time. And that for me is a real crowning achievement for our
Absolutely.
flywheel. On our programming front, we have 3 kind of flagship areas. So we partner with New York City's Summer Youth Employment Pride program, and it's one of the world's largest LGBTQ workforce development programs. And we train queer and trans youth in Queens and the Bronx to become investors. Our second program is a college fellowship program, which I call a LGBTQ social safety net. We're bringing 20 plus students from around the world in this, our 4th cohort.
Around the world, you said.
Around the world.
Amazing.
And from a variety of different nationalities and backgrounds. We just took our UK fellow, and we also have Canadians, but we have people from Ghana, where LGBTQ rights is under attack completely.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so it's kind of like a mini UN, but also a queer social safety net where people are learning about venture careers and venture investment for our college fellowships, an 11-week program where we give educational access opportunities. People can see role models that look like them, that are them in the future. And we let our student fellows become investors at day 1. And then we have our annual summit. Last year, we convened 500 plus individuals across New York City. And this year, we have just an unforgettable program and it's at the Museum of Arts and Design, and we're very lucky. And it's going to be incredible, this Pride.
Amazing, amazing. I love that you are intentionally working with young people, because I think there's something really powerful in helping that this most recent generation think about being investors coming into the VC space. And so I love that you're focusing on that generation. And I love what you said too about having role models, because so much of this is seeing others in the space so that you have a sense that you too can be in that space. Where did that idea come from of working with the young population?
So, as many of us know, VC, or as people will learn, VC is an apprenticeship business, and it's very relational,
Yeah.
which means it starts in the family. You can look at William Draper III, who describes himself as a third generation venture capitalist. Imagine the privilege to have that opportunity that your family was a third generation venture capitalist. For many LGBTQ people and underrepresented minorities, or the new majority,
Yeah.
family is important, but you may be rejected from your family for a variety of different factors. And so you need a social safety net or a supporting block where you can be at home, you could be yourself, and learn about financial education at the minimum, but venture capital and private market investing as well, because those are pathways to opportunities.
Sure. Makes sense. Makes sense. What are some of the disparities, be they economic, that you see for the community in venture capital?
Yeah. So there are a variety of different disparities. I would say it starts 50 years ago, with the fact that venture capital in the United States was formed when women couldn't have a credit card. And we ask ourselves why less than 3% of VC funding goes to women, Black, brown entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
It's the systemic historical wrongs and histories of redlining that have happened in this country and continue to happen today. It's a compounding crisis for queer, trans, BIPOC founders and investors to get into the seats and be a decision maker. So it's a systemic challenge. The statistic that is there is 0.5% go to LGBTQ-led enterprises.
Say that again.
0.5% go to it.
We've got some work to do.
Yeah, got some work to do.
I mean, we all do. I'm not looking at you. We all have work to do.
Yes,
to change that.
And that's where allyship is really important. And we don't really have true statistics on what that looks like when people live an intersectional life. And we don't have statistics right now on queer, trans, BIPOC founders, and BIPOC queer and trans founders specifically. If the disparities cross a cut, it's really an inaccessible asset class. That's not to say don't give up or not try. We can do things. We can all solve to make this better. But we're fundamentally going up current, and we need to change that.
Yeah. You use a really powerful word there, allyship. Who have been some of your allies on your journey, would you say?
Well, there are a lot of different people to thank, but I will say the founder and CEO of Tumblr, David Karp, being one of our seed donors, essentially, to LGBT VC. He grew up here in New York, was really believing in New York, and as the founder of Tumblr, which has been historically called in the queer community one of the queerest platforms to ever exist, and many people have come out. It was really incredible to get the founding gift from David Karp.
I mean, that's really validating. I mean,
it was very validating, and very generous, and we're really appreciative of that. Then throughout our journey, we've had a variety of different supporters and believers, whether it be Witham, Bank of California, and then foundation and philanthropic support, such as most recently the John T. and Catherine D. MacArthur Foundation.
I love them. That's amazing. I mean, not like I know
yeah,
them. I know
yeah.
the foundation. I don't know
The foundation, the Anna Berg Foundation / Anna Berg Check and
They're
Pledge
great.
LA,
They're
which
great.
supports the Venture Access Alliance, Amazon and Amazon Web Service.
Amazing.
So a variety of different folks. And I know this is a fundraising kind of talk. If you miss people there, so I wanted to thank not only the team, all of the people that have done it. The majority of our organization has been done by individuals. And so our legal advisory council and so many people have been a part of this journey, both straight, gay, lesbian, bisexual, trans. It's been a real collective win.
I love that. I love that. And I love that you're giving flowers. We need to give flowers where they're justly and rightfully earned. Yeah. I want to keep on allyship for another moment. What's one or two things that other investors and other VC funds can be doing to be an ally? And then what can other entrepreneurs do to be allies?
There are a variety of different ways to be an ally. But the first thing I would say is listen to Black women before I jump into the LGBTQ.
I did not pay him to say that, people. I just want you to know. But oh my God, guess.
Yes, listen to Black women.
Yes.
Listen to Black women and respect and acknowledge. Many of our fellows are, the majority are right now BIPOC. And actually, before this interview, I asked them what did they think of the most recent announcement with the Fearless case, which is right now a few days out, and obviously can have the same repercussions that the affirmative action case happened.
Right, yeah.
And one of our students, Renee, shared with me some really important insights because sometimes it's hard to stay optimistic all the time. And she told me about listening to Mellody Hobson and a story with Mellody Hobson, where in America, if you are looking at a boardroom and you step into a boardroom and it's all Black, people say, that's interesting. But if you go to a boardroom and it's all white, people do not make that same comment. So when we talk about the future of venture, and venture influences boardrooms, influences decision makers, it's important, and I was listening to her, and this is her perspective, and I want to give credit where credit's due.
Yeah.
When we have this normalization of a variety of different people from different backgrounds, racially, immigrants, QT, BIPOC individuals here, and it just becomes normal part of venture, and we're not talking about the disparities or the challenges or the obstacles, that will be our real success.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because I also think to add on to that is we don't need saviors, right? Like we're not looking for someone to rescue us. It's just like, just don't be a roadblock. Don't be a roadblock and don't be an asshole. Like,
yes.
Right. So I love that. How do we? I think we
Yes.
can. I think we can curse on this show. Yeah, I mean it's normalizing the work that we do, that both you and I do.
Yeah.
Anything about, particularly, I wanted to speak about investors and how people invest, and what do you think we need to be intentional about if we're going to move those numbers and the percentages you gave?
So there are a lot of rumors about TAM, track record, a variety of different things that impact LGBTQ fund managers as well as LGBTQ entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
I think that the typical patterns of success, because a lot of times VC goes for pattern matching, need to be broken. And sometimes the unconventional outliers, the people from the divine margins, that was both a Joshua Heschel and Martin Luther King term, but from the people from the divine margins,
I love it,
are the ones who build.
Yeah.
And those are the ones who outperform. Those are the ones who take care of their community, who provide opportunity. And so that's what I would say. Look for the outliers, look for the outperformers. because the patterns that lasted 50, 100 years, so on and so forth, are not going to be the patterns of the future. We know that with the demographic shifts that are happening in this country.
Yeah. I'm going to call a little bullshit on our industry. And listen, we're VC, so I'm, calling bullshit on myself. We talk so much about looking for innovation and mitigating risk and, being disruptors and transformative. And yet so much of the investing that happens comes from this like herd mentality, this pattern matching you talked about. It's like, oh, well, if he's in the deal, I'm going to get in the deal. And it's like, where's some original thought? Where's some original thinking? Where's your innovation as an investor? And it always boggled my mind how much herd mentality there is in the sector, but yet we're hyping and we're looking for the next new thing and original ideas and innovative, transformative, disruptive. Sorry, I'll stop. I'm now on a personal rant here.
No, I agree. There's a lot of herd mentality. And I think what it means to be sometimes queer is to break those norms. And that's like where the definition of queer, and many people wouldn't even use, that's why we don't use LGBTQ or as much, is because that term used to be offensive, but we've reclaimed it, which is playing with the unconventional. But the more you break those unconventional norms, the better. There's new ideas. That's where the real disruption happens.
Yeah. Is there anything, because a lot of this we're talking about is systemic too, right? So we're talking at a sort of ingrained system level challenges. Is it legislation, regulation, the answer, or is it people and mindset and just seeing the success that you and I know will happen when we invest differently and when we have different investors writing the checks?
Well,
or is it all? I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, it's a little bit of all. But I will say on the regulatory landscape, I have a few of suggestions.
Let's hear them, baby. Let's get them out there.
You're going to get me on a little bit.
Let's you and me take a drive to Capitol Hill.
Comptrollers. Our state treasurers and comptrollers need to invest in diverse and emerging managers at the Fund 1 level, specifically to support BIPOC individuals. That's number one, state treasurers and comptrollers. And I'm looking to you, New York, to be the leader in that pack. And
amen.
And CalPERS to really be the leader on that. Yeah.
Right.
Right. And so be a leader, invest in an LGBTQ-led fund, invest in a BIPOC-led fund at Fund 1. Take the risk. It's worth it. My parents were public education teachers, and their pensions are not actually aligning up to the public values that many teachers feel. And that's true for our public safety officials, our firefighters, our teachers. Start aligning about values. So that would be one regulatory change that's really important.
Wait, no, let's stay on that one for another half a second, because I have been singing the same song. And like one of the companies that Wocstar Fund has invested in is an ed tech company. And so a potential investor who shall not be named, I was saying, hey, your members would actually benefit to have this technology in their classroom. And we see it because they're selling into school districts and they're getting the feedback that the teachers love this technology. And so I thought that would be kind of an aha moment for them. It wasn't. They didn't invest in Wocstar Fund. And it was that conversation that made me think, my gosh, like if teachers knew where their dollars to build their retirement accounts were being allocated, they could have a way to say, hey, yes, I want the dollars and the returns to, benefit my retirement and savings account. But gosh, if you could invest in things that actually could help me in the classroom, that would be a double win, right? Same way, like, some of the security technology we look at, that could help first responders, that could help, fire, police, EMTs. So yeah, it's just, should we call this the bullshit episode? Like, I'm going to call bullshit on that too. So yes, that needs to happen. And I'll be there with you. I'll be an ally. We'll do that.
Well, I think
I'm raising my hand to help with that.
Yes, I think that's really important. I will say the head of the American Federation for Teachers, the largest union, Randy Weingarten, and her partner. Randy Weingarten's the head. The partner is the head of our synagogue, where I go to a queer Jewish synagogue.
Where's your synagogue?
It's here in New York, CBST. I'm really proud to be a member of that because many of the people were at the original Stonewall and led the movement for gay rights and LGBTQ rights, defending marriage equality, a variety of different things, right? They're the people who've given me the privilege to sit here today and did the hard work for the future generations.
Yeah, but
all
listen,
that's to say,
they might have helped you get here, but I think there's some beshert in that.
Yes.
Meaning this was meant to be.
Yes.
You being here was meant to be. Beshert.
So I think, just to call on to the teacher unions to think, let's get our values and invest in ed tech. Yes, that's so important. Impact tech as well.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So we have to end, but I want you to have the final word in terms of advice that you would give to the VC community, be it entrepreneurs, be it the VC funds themselves, be it the investors who invest in funds. Final thoughts, final advice.
Ooh.
Or a call to action. Maybe.
A call to action. Some final advice. I would say, one, stand up for LGBTQ individuals. We really do need allies.
Amen, amen.
That come together. And that's just as simple as taking a meeting, helping someone support a business plan, actually putting your dollars in investment into queer and trans BIPOC leaders and entrepreneurs, because you will get returns. You will. It will happen.
Yeah.
And so those are a few call to actions. But then I would say support the Equality Act. So we haven't had federal legislation that prevents anti-discrimination in credit, lending, financial services in general. The majority of LGBTQ people have faced some form of financial discrimination. There is no federal protection and sometimes barely any state level protection. So I'd say every venture capitalist, speak to your legislators, speak and support LGBTQ people, call, vote, all these important things, because equality is overdue.
I mean, I knew it was going to be amazing having you on here, but I love there's so many actionable things that we could be doing.
Well, thank you. I was going to suggest, as an ally, what would you recommend to folks in the VC community?
I love that you asked me a question. Most guests don't. Maybe we should change this up. This is so cool. I think that the VC community needs to be intentional about the diversity and inclusion that we all slap on our website. And we have to have evidence-based ways that show that our actions align with what we say we do. I remember one of our early, not our first, but one of our early investments was a trans woman, biracial trans woman founder. And it was, for us, normalized. It wasn't a outlier. It wasn't this like, hey, it was a really good company run by a really good dynamic founder. And that's why we wrote the check. And I want to see more of that from my peers.
That would be incredible. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you. I'm getting chills just having this conversation with you because I see the future we're all going to get to.
Yes.
But it starts with people like you. So thank you.
And you.
This episode of VC's Off the Record is brought to you by Wocstar Ghetto Film School Entrepreneurial Academy. Okay, so can we just talk about my New Yorker in me's coming out? When he said, listen to Black women. Okay?
I mean, I died.
Yeah. That was so, of course. But
that was so, of course.
But I was also like, You know? Like, yes. Wow.
And having him say it
That's
versus
what
us
right,
saying
right.
it. Just
I'm tired of saying it. I'm tired.
Oh.
Right?
Do you see these dark circles under my eyes? I'm exhausted saying it. Exhausted.
Yeah. So that was pretty powerful. And
here's the thing that was also powerful about it is he said it with such normalcy.
yes. Yes.
As if,
you're
like-
right. That was what was surprising.
Yeah.
It was like, how do you like your eggs? Scrambled. This is the answer.
Yeah.
And that I know for sure.
And particularly when you think about all of the issues he's representing and the communities
Mhm.
that he's representing, and yet his starting point was Black
Yeah.
women.
Yeah.
That's
It's powerful. He's
Powerful.
doing some powerful
He's
work.
powerful.
Yeah.
I love that he had concrete, actionable things that we could all do to be an ally.
Mhm.
And what I loved about that is now we have no excuse not to be intentional and be allies. Like
All of us.
all of us.
All of us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. I mean, listen, to the extent one person is denied opportunity, we all suffer. We all suffer.
Yeah.
And listen, I don't want to make it seem like I've always known that. I keep relearning that and keep seeing examples of that. But it's really true. Like all
You-
boats rise, and when one
all
doesn't,
all boats rise. And I talk about this, especially with our team. I'm like, I want us to think about we're all ants. We're all building up.
yeah,
We're all building up together,
yeah,
right? And you see all those ants. It's not one ant, right? It's together we can get where we're going. And I feel like we have to break that, like what we talked about before, the pie mentality. We have to break it because there is
yeah. There's too much herd mentality.
yeah.
And we used, nice words like unconscious bias,
Mhm.
pattern matching. It's like kind of bullshit for.
I didn't
just
know what that
being-
meant. I'm gonna start asking you when I don't know what something means. I'm gonna write it
Okay.
down.
Yeah, because we have
Pattern-
a lot of.
Yeah, you talk way over the head some for me, and I imagine somebody else might not know what pattern matching means.
Yeah, so it's a nice way for VCs to say that they look for clusters and repetitive behavior.
Of
As-
spending or buying or growth.
in all things,
Okay.
right? So looking at like, is there pattern matching in some types of technology and some types of products, some services? But if we really boil it down, it's kind of a lazy way of saying, okay, if I see enough of this, then I'll move in that direction.
So that's how a bubble starts. Is that like what? Is that in essentially in a way?
That's kind of the
Even if
herd
it's a mini
mentality. Yeah, I mean,
bubble?
it's also the herd mentality. I mean, listen, part of, and oh my God, I'm calling out my industry again. I'm going to be hated vilified
No,
by my peers.
they know.
They do. We talk about herd mentality. In some ways, it's just being a lazy investor, right? It's like, oh, if Bob's in it, I'm going to invest in it too. Well, maybe figure out why Bob invested in and what he's trying to get done. It might not be the same for you,
Yeah.
right? But we're like, he made money on that last deal. I'll just follow him.
Yeah. Well, thank you for teaching me something today.
Oh, you teach me things every day. Our guests teach me every
Yeah,
time, right?
yeah.
This
is good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for hanging with us. This podcast was produced by Wocstar Media in New York City at the Podstream Studios. Be sure to follow VC's Off the Record on Apple and Spotify. We're also on Sheconomy, the State of Women podcast platform. Please consider giving us a good review or share it with someone. Let us know what you want us to talk about on our socials and our YouTube channel. You can find us at wocstar.com for all the information.